Welcome to NIT and T-Mobile's presentation on the AI Native Research Agency, how T-Mobile is running research that wasn't possible before. My name is Anish. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of NIT, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Tara, who's a senior brand strategist and insights over at T-Mobile. Tara, do you mind kicking us off with a little bit about your background and the role of your team over at T-Mobile?
Sure. I lead one of several insights teams at T-Mobile. We're 98 people large, so we have quite a few different sub-teams. My team focuses on brand strategy, brand measurement, a lot of innovation, concept development, anything related to audiences. So we have a pretty big remit, and we support all of the enterprise. So that's like the Magenta brand most people are familiar with, as well as the Metro brand, our home internet product, fiber product. We have some finance products, a lot of things people aren't even aware of, like some random devices, but we support all of it.
Awesome. So over the next couple minutes here, Tara and I are going to talk a little bit about how T-Mobile's been using NIT's AI native research model and what's that's unlocked for them, helping them run faster, helping them run better research, and helping them think about research in brand new ways. We have some exciting things to share around that especially. But I just want to rewind back about 2 years when we first met, Tara. You guys were in the process of going out and evaluating a bunch of different AI partners. Can you share a little bit more what you were looking for, how you were evaluating them, and what really mattered for you as you were evaluating these different partners?
Sure. Some of our, the ways that we vet agencies or research partners are kind of always true. So just truths. You want an agency you can trust. You want really good research rigor. And those types of things. But I think what felt different when we started to explore things in the AI space is, in particular, we had a lot of nervousness around trust and what kind of information we were comfortable sharing or not sharing. So we really needed a trusted partner. And we were particularly excited about some of the AI native agencies versus just, we have other great partners too where AI is a plus up or something they were also learning at the same time. But we were really curious to talk to folks like NIT where they were building it kind of more from the ground up from the AI angle. And it started to feel really different, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it as we get into it. But they had some distinct differences, I think, because they are AI native.
So over the next couple minutes here, we'll kind of give an example of each one of the business outcomes we were able to drive for T-Mobile over the last couple of years, and then some of the really new and innovative stuff we're doing around new ways of running research. But to Tara's point, I just want to spend a quick second talking about what is an AI native research agency. So NIT, we have built the AI native research agency, and the best way to think about this is we bring the best parts of working with an agency, that expertise, that rigor, that trust that you talked about, as well as the efficiencies and the speed and the ability to run research at scale that AI native companies can offer you. We're thrilled to be working with you guys over the last couple of years and also supporting some of the other world's best and biggest brands. So what does that actually mean when you put it together, and how do we bring it to life? The idea of an AI native research agency is grounded in this philosophy of being researcher-driven or researcher-driven AI, where AI handles the intelligence of executing the research itself, and humans come to the table and bring something that we never think will be able to be replicated, which is the judgment, that taste in how to run research, the context, what methodology to use, how to frame this for your stakeholders. So the way this shows up in how we work with our partners like T-Mobile is it starts by gathering the context. For each and every one of our enterprise partners, we embed a senior researcher into our relationship, and they spend the time understanding, how do you run research? What does your research look like? How do you think about your business? How does your team show up in your organization? We take that context and use that to guide the AI so that when you're ready to run research, we're there to meet you where you are. If it's a particularly chunky study that's very strategic, you can hop on a call with one of our researchers. Tara can share a little bit more about how that showed up in one of her projects that they ran. If it's a quick and dirty study, you can go on and do it in a more self-service way. But the important part is the AI is executing each and every step of that process from scoping all the way to reporting. And throughout that process, it's being driven by the context and the guidance that you've given it. And you have the ability throughout the process to continue driving it with your context and guidance every step of the process. The end outcome there is a report that looks and feels like someone on your team ran it or one of your agency partners ran it. It's truly an extension of the work that you and your team would be doing because it has all that context that you've given it up front. So what this model has unlocked for our brand partners is faster research, up to 6 to 10 times faster studies than traditional agencies, better research because you get the depth and the rigor that you would get from an expert researcher, but at the scale and speed of AI. And most importantly, and what we'll spend the most time talking about today, completely brand new ways to think about and run research. So we're going to bring this to life for you over the next 10 or 15 minutes, starting with faster research. So Tara, can you kick us off by sharing a little bit more about this fun project that I think we did in person when we were speaking last time, or at least kicked it off in person when we were speaking a year ago. Do you mind sharing a bit more context and expanding on this project around how faster research has shown up for T-Mobile?
Sure. I think whether you're on the vendor side or the client side, I think probably a lot of people can relate to this situation where senior leadership team comes to you on a Friday. They are demanding insights in a couple days. I can tell you there was a world in which we could never do this to the depth we do it today. But that's just our reality. We get these questions. Historically, we would say, well, we could do like a quick overnight poll. It'll be Gen Pop that won't have any open-ended answers. It's going to be kind of directional. And now, in this instance, we had this really critical question, couldn't be ignored. We got into field that night. This started like all spun up on a Friday, got into field that night and literally had results back on Monday. And part of that is because, as Anisha was saying, as we've worked with it over time, they understand the things that we need. We've sort of trained its AI on the way we want our information or our findings shared back with us. You don't have to keep building that in. It's like almost think of like an evergreen questionnaire or an evergreen analysis framework that we always want. And so it just, again, it speeds everything up. And so we literally didn't just have findings on that Monday, we had a report and like a depth of insights in the way that our SLT demands that we share them. Now we're starting to spoil them a little bit. I'm like, we're not going to do this all the time. It's still painful. Nobody wants to be running research on the weekends. But at least we have this tool, and it's been really game-changing for us.
Awesome. And Tara, you mentioned two things. One is the ability to get an output that, again, is decision ready, is stakeholder ready, something that you can flip over to your leadership team that day. But you also mentioned the depth of the study or the research. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because to your point, you can get data back in 24 or 48 hours in a lot of different ways, but the type of depth that you got and the output that you got was really what stood out here.
Part of it is just the quality of the respondent panel, and I don't know if we're going to talk in too much detail around that today, but they're just head and shoulders above, and some of the ability we get with like the video qual at scale in particular, and being able to synthesize findings so quickly is it's just phenomenal, and it's more than just synthesis because I think. It's easy to say, well, we've already built a chat that can synthesize, or we're using Copilot or whatever. But because we've trained the synthesis to tell us again, like, when you pick up on this theme, present it this way, or explain further, or give us the depth when you're talking about value, and give us the nuances between these cohorts, because that's always going to be meaningful for us to understand, and things like that. And so that all comes back in that first round. It's not something you have to like layer on top as you're starting to craft your report. It's just phenomenal.
So speed is one aspect that we've been able to unlock with this partnership. The second is running better research. And better to what Tara was saying is the quant qual in that previous study we were talking about, I think you had 500 plus person sample, hundreds of video responses. So it was a pretty meaty study, but also better as in being able to think about how you can structure this research in a different way with that research expertise that you would expect from your agency partners. Can you walk through the example of this project that we have up on the screen and how you worked with both our human expert research team as well as the AI to just get that depth and rigor, but at a really quick pace?
Yeah, so this was an example of something, a nut we were trying to crack around sort of value and a values driver question. And we were able to work with the KNIT team, so live humans, to kind of come up with this values framework. And then that now sits in our system or in the platform with KNIT. And so then when the results come back, again, it's sort of giving us what we want in a framework that we all agreed is going to help us socialize the findings the strongest based on the learning objectives, and again, also like some preferences that we tend to have as T-Mobile, the things we're always trying to pull out. Because that now sits in there, it's one of those, again, evergreen things that's always there. We can always pull that lever and say, okay, now for this news study, what would that look like in the context of this framework? And you can just do it with, a click.
Awesome. So we covered faster and better. I think what we're both really excited to share is a quick sneak peek at some of the stuff that we've been working on with the T-Mobile team this last quarter around new ways of running research. So over the last 3 months, we've been partnering really closely with T-Mobile to build out this product called Digital Personas, which we'll have a lot more about this coming out over the coming weeks and months. Before we dive too deep into what digital personas is and how it allows you to speak with simulated audiences based and rooted in your customer base, can you start us off, Tara, with just sharing a little bit more about what drove you to even explore this with us? What was the big business challenge you're trying to solve with this?
Yeah, so the backstory here is we worked for about 18 months, a large group of data analysts and insights leaders at T-Mobile in putting together a TMUS-wide segmentation. And it was the largest collection of data sets that we've ever stitched together. Everything was also findable in our media tech stack, which was something we'd never been able to do before. So we did a lot of firsts. We're so proud of this amazing body of work, and then we're like, okay, we need to get everybody socialized on this and using it and talking the same language as quickly as possible, which is really hard to do. At T-Mobile, as you can imagine, you've got tons of different teams and tons of different like rogue segmentation models or like holdover segmentation models or teams just working on their own audiences. We never had one that worked across the enterprise. So all that to say, we were trying to figure out ways to kind of pull this into like one easy interface that we could start to share and socialize, and to a certain degree also just democratize the insights, which I think was a little bit of a tension point for us. It has been for me as a researcher, like how much do you want to let non-researchers within the company kind of have access to this tool? It can make you a little nervous. And then we had this epiphany, like, guess what? Everyone's doing it anyway. People are just setting up their own chats and desktop research. So at least let us build this thing that we can have some governance over.
So Tara, I mean, synthetic data, synthetic personas, simulated personas, it's a very polarized topic in our industry. I know it's come up a lot. Let's just spend a couple minutes talking about the nuts and bolts behind this. Before we dive into what the product looks like, can you share a little bit more about how does this work? How are you guys using it? What are the core use cases? And also, what's the adoption been like? We've been live with you guys for about a month and a half, 2 months. What are you seeing? What trends are you seeing across the organization?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about adoption because I literally had to turn the ringer on my phone off because I'm getting pinged like all day. Because we've been starting to socialize this more broadly, and everyone is so hungry for it and excited. But I'll just back up for a second and say we looked at a lot of different AI partners. And one thing that was important to us when we started to build the digital personas in particular was we wanted the LLM to be like the icing on the cake and not the cake. Like the cake is our data, and we have so much of it. And I know that's not probably true for every single company out there, but we have an enormous amount of customer data or prospect data, user data, you name it, stuff from our segmentation studies, our product trackers, brand trackers. We needed just an organizing framework, but we still wanted like the LLM piece in there to make it, to enrich it. And so that was kind of a key piece, is getting like that, those proportions kind of right. And then having an interface that just felt intuitive, like kind of not over-engineering that. And we also just already had a strong relationship with it. We knew that these guys are the types of people who want to roll up their sleeves and work with us, and we like their engineers, and we like their whole team. And so we felt like we could figure this out together. Like, we might not get it right out of the gate, although I kind of feel like we did. But we were willing to just try different things, which has been great. And the adoption's been amazing. We're still technically in beta, but we've got several different teams already leveraging it. And one of our biggest use cases, we have a ton of different use cases for this, but the one that excites me the most, because my team works on all these dark projects, is the ability to test dark projects. We don't like to test anything, even in like a really closed qual environment, if it's truly like a locked down potential new to the world technology or product. And so we've made a lot of intuitive decisions. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. And this gives us a way to vet some things that we wouldn't have even normally tested before.
And Tara, how are you seeing it be used? Like, what's the core use case outside of like the testing the dark projects? Would you say this is, I feel like there's a lot of distrust that simulated or synthetic data will replace human-led research. Are you seeing your team use it like that as a replacement for human research, or is
it's a good question. To me, it is replacing phases of projects for sure. So it's helping us move faster. So one way we've been using it a lot is we have 9 clusters in our segmentation solution. You can go query one of them, or you can query all 9 at the same time and see what the nuances are. We might say something like, how do you feel about bundling your home internet and wireless plans? And just look at like, what are the similarities and differences? Then and because it's a conversational kind of tool, it remembers. It's just like you're talking to a real person. Then you can ask a follow-up question. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And what that gives us, if you query it correctly, we've done a lot of pressure testing on it, is some good directional read on, you know what, we think your core audiences for this project are these 4 clusters, or maybe here's your bullseye target and here's some shadow targets, versus spending a whole phase of research just figuring out the audience piece or doing the sizing piece, which is what we've done traditionally. We'll get a big ask from like a product team or a marketing team. And phase was 1, sometimes even like phases 1 and 2 are just the business casing part of it, or trying to figure out who is this idea best suited for. And like, we're trimming that way down or just trimming it off right now. And so far so good. So it's been good.
Can you share a little bit about how does this intertwine with the human research? So I know we're kicking off a project right now where we are running research on the NIP platform that then is feeding back in to refresh the understanding of the segmentation. Can you share a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to always augment, right? Because we know by nature AI is going to be reflective. It's going to regurgitate a lot of things you already know, which frankly is another use case I didn't mention, which is my team and other research teams are using this to find the actual data points for the things we know, but we can't remember where they sit, if that makes sense, right? And you'll see in the tool, when you can look at the confidence rating for what the tool gives you, you can see what's driving the data you're reading. And then, so we've used it as like our own little internal cheat sheet to say, oh, that's right, that was that study. And then we can go to that exact study and cite that data point. But our vision for this is the more data it ingests, we're still letting it ingest, the more powerful it will be. But we never see it replacing all of our research. It's really just an augment, but still really valuable.
Yeah, and that's, as we've spent a lot of time working with the T-Mobile team, that's exactly what we're seeing. It's really there to help guide and give direction to all those decisions that are being made in your gut or with your gut in that meeting that ends up being crystallized into actually a real decision and providing a little bit more guidance for it. as well as bringing up a little bit of the research in the process earlier. So this has been so exciting to work on, and I'm excited to give everyone a quick look at what the product looks like. So as Tara mentioned, basically you can create these different synthetic or digital personas that, let me just click on the slide here so it plays. All right. GIF is broken, but I'll walk you guys through it anyway. So you can chat with your personas here. And what we've done is, to your point, it's like a group chat, right? You can ask it a question, it responds to you, and then you can actually turn that conversation into an entire report. So really quickly and really easily be able to export that conversation as a report. To Tara's point, in order to build trust and transparency, we also have a confidence score that tells you how deeply attached is this to the data that you've shared with us. So the higher the confidence, the more grounded it is in the data. The lower the confidence, the more it's actually extrapolating, which isn't always a bad thing. It just means it's a question that you ask that hasn't been represented in the data set.
And right now we're also using that. Like if we see a confidence that's a little lower, we're like, okay, it needs to ingest some more retail data to get that higher.
And we made it really easy to bring in data as well. So you can bring in, you guys are using segmentations, trackers, pretty much any data that you have lying around that maps back or ties back to how you think about the customer is fair game for uploading this, including net new research that you might be running. So in this case, if you have a typing tool that types back to a segmentation that you're using, anytime you run research, in this case on the NIP platform, it's feeding back and hydrating that so you always have the most up-to-date understanding of your customer.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I think that's another differentiator because other agencies we talked to, they wanted to kind of like, it was like all or nothing. Like we're going to own everything, including all the net new research or whatever's feeding it. But this was like, okay, you're not running every single project that is informing this. And the ingestion's been really easy, whether it's raw data or like a synthesis deck.
Awesome. Well, with that, we have a couple minutes left for Q&A. I'll just wrap things up by saying thank you so much for walking us through this. One of the things that we're most excited about as we work with our different brand partners, especially T-Mobile here, is really figuring out, first, how can we help you run faster research? I think that's always the lowest hanging fruit with an AI native agency model. How can we work on ways to make the research that you're doing today better? But ultimately, where we want to get with all of our partners and where we got with you guys in a very innovative way here is like, what are some new ways to run research and how can we unlock new ways of thinking about it that haven't ever been possible before? And that's where this partnership really matters. We spend a lot of time with Tara and the team to figure these things out. And we're really excited to bring this to market with you guys over the next couple months here. With that, I'll turn it over to the audience for any questions in the last 4 or 5 minutes that we have. Awesome. Saki, do you mind handing over the mic?
Mm-hmm. Where's the first question? So have you run research and compare synthetic data to consumer data, and what have you found?
Yes, we have, but Tara, if you want to talk about how you guys have evaluated your outcomes as well.
And we're still doing that because we're technically still in beta mode, although I think that'll shift to non-beta mode like within days. But we continue to do that. We've done it with messaging testing, offer testing, NPI, if anybody is familiar with what NPI is, Apple's big release every year. That's a big moment in wireless. And so we did some parallel path message testing to validate it, so yes.
Yeah, and the one thing I would just add on top of that, both from a synthetic as well as the AI outputs on the NIP platform, especially with that, we have a very rigorous benchmark that we evaluated against, looking across 8 different metrics like narrative, tone, substance of the insights that we work with both of our partners as well as our in-house research team to constantly evaluate and make sure we're hitting those benchmarks. So that's why the outputs that our customers like Tara get are really high quality. It's already been, it wouldn't be there with the AI if it wasn't already meeting those benchmarks. Yeah.
So there was one particular piece of this that you had talked about the LLM, how it's not just the cake, the data is. And so it seemed like NIT had built an LLM that would house all of your insights that then across the organization you could prompt questions. How is what NIT did different than just building a gem on Gemini and uploading all of your proprietary information and prompting it? What's the unique value that you're bringing there?
Yeah, I can talk about it from a technical side, but you guys were doing something very similar, right? So like can you talk a little bit about the outcomes that you're seeing with the data from NIT versus that?
Yeah, I think just the platform you built is intuitive and simple, and we've trained I should say LLMs plural, because we're in beta. I think we still have the option when you query to choose from 8, right? Are we still at 8? So we haven't called that down. We're still playing to see like which ones we like the best. But to a large degree, it's just how we've trained it around our preferences.
Yeah, I would say that is there's a couple different categories. Like one is actually just the look and feel of it, like making it very simple. I think that's probably the least exciting, although very, very impactful. The second is the efficacy, right? So you want it to spit things out in a way that like makes sense, how your team thinks about it, and that comes from all those different feedback loops that we've built into that. And we have a bunch of stuff layered on top of it so that it's not like you're just going and throwing this data into ChatGPT and coming out. Some of which I can talk about, some of which I can't, but it's running like hundreds and thousands of simulations on the back end and then giving that answer out to you. And then the last thing that I would just say is like the governance of it as well. Like there's a lot of nuances that go in, and especially with T-Mobile on who can see what and which data, which project can be seen by this customer, how do you want it to report, like what do you want that output to look like for your stakeholders. So building that entire end-to-end process and not just looking at it from I'm gonna ask this a question and get a response, and actually the holistic, hey, let's run research from start to finish, including the fact that it's embedded into our primary research model where you can then go kick off a study, run research, and have it hydrate that.
I'll just add, we've tried so many different solutions on our own, and like nothing really beats this. And you sort of have to just try it to believe it, because it comes down sometimes to the nuance of the language and the insights you're getting. You'll get a response, and then you'll get a lot of like just color that feels so unique to like what we know to be true about our clusters, and you're like, wow, it's just amazing how spot on it is.
Successful, the results of coming off of the synthetic consumers and the results to innovate your products and technology. Have you been able to validate that at all, and whether it did hit the mark and that was a success?
Stay tuned. No. We have something running right now. We feel good about it. It's ready for release, but it just hasn't hit real world yet to know for sure.
Right, next year, we'll look forward to it.
I know, yeah. You just set us up perfectly for the next Works.
We dabbled with it with our satellite, but we weren't like fully immersed in the tool yet.
Yeah, and I think we've done some testing where we've looked backwards as well, right? Yep. Campaigns that you guys have run that were then running on this, and the results are coming out similarly. So,
yeah.
But yeah, maybe Quirks. What's next, London? We can talk about this. All right, we have time for maybe one more question. Yes. Bring the mic over to you.
When you were laying out what steps you do versus what AI does, do the questionnaires, are they produced by AI, or do you do it? Do you have the opportunity to do the questionnaires yourself? Because frankly, there's no way I would hand over my questionnaire building. I work in a very, very specialized industry.
Yeah, we're the same way. And I know like NIT can craft questionnaires. It's just a preference of T-Mobile that we tend to own that.
Yeah, so there's
Literally the language is different.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways we've done this with customers. One is like we can give the AI all that context, right? So if you have previous questionnaires, we can feed it into that. So the outputs kind of match what the context that it has there. But there is human judgment by purpose built throughout the process. So, T-Mobile, depending on the project, but some of our customers, they'll take that output and then they'll put their own, review on it before actually sending it for that additional layer if there's a lot of nuance in it. All right, well, that wraps things up. Thank you all so much for attending.
Thank you.